So, City of Eureka Mayor Susan Seaman will be opening the conference officially, our California Main Street Conference for 2022. Theme is creating community vitality, and we will hear Susan's vision for Eureka's historic Old Town and Downtown Main Street District, and how her administration is supporting the holistic revitalization efforts. Mayor Susan Seaman has worked in economic development for 15 years at AEDC, and it's a local organization that funds startup and small businesses, and as well as community stakeholders and funding larger economic and community development projects. She and her husband previously owned their own small retail business for 7 years in the rural community of Fieldbrook, which is here in Humboldt County. And she has raised her 2 children here in Eureka, and her commitment to community is shown through her dedication to solving workforce issues, including the improvement of equity, neighborhoods, childcare housing, medical and dental care. And the first time I ever met Susan Seaman, she was working on the Lemonade Base Band project, and I think that just really is a great illustration of her dedication to all of those things, and creating a drive for small business in our community. So I'm happy to introduce Susan Seaman to speak.
All right. Do we want to change the slide, please? Thank you, Amanda, and the other Amanda, and Alicia, who has been incredibly helpful in my last minute sort of scrambling to get this pulled together. It's been an incredibly busy couple of weeks, but I'm so honored and happy to be here. I might digress a little bit from what Amanda was talking about. I'm going to take us on a whole journey from yesterday until tomorrow, and talking about Eureka, but also trying to relate it to everybody's business, main streets we're here today. So let me officially get started. And if you want to change the slide, I will say welcome to Eureka, virtually at least. I really wish you guys could all be here in person to experience what our little micropolitan community has to offer. So if you don't know, we're tucked away on the far northern coast of California. We're surrounded by an ocean of redwoods to the south, and that's exactly how I think of it every time I drive in. It looks like an ocean of redwood trees. It's beautiful. Also to the north, to the east, we have rivers and mountains, and to the west, we have an actual ocean. And Eureka is just nestled among all of this amazing nature, but it is like a fun-sized version of some of your favorite larger metropolitan areas. We're steeped in arts and culture, and even have we've been named an official cultural arts district. And we have diverse industries that include tourism, but also manufacturing and aquaculture and renewable energy. We have a brand new polytechnic in our neighboring city that's growing to become a truly regional institution, and they're looking at building and expanding in Eureka. And only a month ago, they were just a plain old university. We have incredible dining, including our restaurants and our food manufacturing. So if you ever wanted to take a day and spend it in nature, you can go to a grocery store and pick up some locally manufactured food that makes a fabulous picnic. If you ever come to town and you want a fabulous picnic, I will be happy to help you put one together, because it is super fun. I highly recommend coming up here to visit. Add it to your list of places that you want to see, and you will not regret it. Today, I want to start my presentation, though, not by talking about Eureka's Main Street, because to me, the name Main Street conjures up this sense of nostalgia. So when I was asked to speak to all of you, I started thinking about my oldest memories of the downtown where I grew up. And while strolling down memory lane, I invite you to do the same. So as I'm talking and telling stories, I really want you to engage by thinking of your own experiences, your own downtown sort of Main Street memories, and put them in chat and make this a really engaging experience, because I think my life is fascinating, but I think you all probably think your life is more fascinating. So let's all do this together. You could change the slide, please. So I grew up in a small town in the Inland Empire called Rialto. I don't know if any of you guys know of Rialto. It doesn't appear that they have a Main Street district because I looked it up, and I think that is a missed opportunity. The city's historic district downtown on Riverside Avenue. Oh wait, go back. Okay, just leave it there for a while. It is, okay, wait, I go back. This is Riverside Avenue as I remember it as a kid. And on the corner, you can't quite see it. It's in front of the businesses that you can see is a little store called Bert's Food Market. And that was our local butcher shop. And every week, my dad would take a trip down to Bert's. And I loved to go with him when I was a little kid, because the butcher, whose name was Doug, always had a cookie behind the meat counter for kids. And he always had dog bones for the pets. And he was knowledgeable about the cuts of meat. You know, he had that expertise in his business. But I was, 6 or 7, so that was not important to me. What was important to me is that every time we went to the grocery store, he engaged me in conversation as much as he engaged my dad. And I felt very important. So here I am nearly 50 years later telling you about it, and I still remember his name. And if you knew how terrible I was with names, you would know he must have made a real impact on me. So in the 70s, a few stores down from Bert's, so kind of in that, I don't know, probably that bluish awning area, there was a little television and appliance repair store. And my neighbors, the Henrys, owned that. And I loved the Henrys. They were like a second family to me. And eventually they retired, and I'm guessing it might have had something to do with it was about the time televisions became so cheap that they didn't need to be repaired anymore. But they remained advocates for the downtown merchants. And so they were really my connection with downtown and my connection with entrepreneurship in general. And so when I got married which was around Christmas time, I got married in December. Arlene Henry, who now owned a Christmas tree farm, bought me an angel tree topper. So you want to change the slide? When I opened the gift, I saw that it was from Rialto Gifts, which was right next to their old appliance store. And that angel has been with me now for 30 years. I imagine it will be on the top of my tree for the rest of my life. Not just because I loved Arlene so much, but because every time I put it on my tree, it makes me think of my hometown. It really, truly does. But shopping downtown in my youth, that was the exception, not the rule. You could change the slide again. Because I was a child of the 80s. You can tell by the feathered hair and those giant glasses. I feel like my glasses today were kind of similar, and I wanted to avoid getting them. My daughter assured me that these were the ones I should pick out. I said, oh, they feel a little 80s to me. This picture was me at my first job at Kmart. We still had blue light specials back then. And I don't know why I keep thinking about this, but we also had this terrible cafeteria in the back that had like this, there was wood and orange, and it had awful food. And it was just the most dated thing I could imagine. We got paid in cash back then. It was a very different time. For example, back then Kmart still existed. I don't know that it does anymore. At least all of the ones I've ever known have closed. At that time, there also weren't a lot of other big box stores. We didn't have Michael's or Staples or Home Depot or most of the specialty big box stores we think of today. And Walmart existed, but it hadn't proliferated the nation yet. But in my teen years, if it was happening, if you want to change the slide again, the happening place was the mall. That was where we went in the 80s. And it wasn't just a place to buy clothes, although we did buy clothes there. We bought crazy, ridiculous clothes there that seemed totally normal at the time. But they were gathering places. We ate together there. We went to the movies. We met boys. We had jobs. And heck, sometimes we even had concerts there. So those of us who could drive, we wore a path in the road to our two malls, which were the Inland Center Mall and the Central City Mall. Those of us who couldn't drive could easily take a bus. But like so many attributes of the suburbs, they weren't convenient for walking or biking. So walkability was not a word that we had when I was growing up. They made movies where malls helped define the life of young people, like Valley Girl and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And the interesting thing was that when they made movies with mall scenes in them, it almost always emphasized the point that malls lack substance. They lacked character and they lacked a sense of place. You could go to any mall in any town and get pretty much the same experience. And then the world changed, as it always does. Big box stores started popping up with massive developments that bunched several stores together, which made it look like whole cities were turning into giant shopping malls. And before long, driving from town to town had that ubiquitous, been there, done that feel. And actual malls, you can change the slide. Oh, back. So did it disappear? There's supposed to be a slide after that.
Yeah, Susan, we had inserted the video between those two slides.
Oh, shoot.
Next one.
So skip the video. We'll go back to the video after about 2 more slides. Sorry. Nope, not that. Okay. So malls used to be these awesome happening places, but now they've become the place where seniors go to walk. That is the big activity. And those malls, the ones that embrace the walking seniors, they're in better shape than others. Like the mall I went to in my youth, Central City, put a giant carousel in the entryway to try to make it cooler. They changed the name to Carousel Mall to create a new and exciting vibe. And you want to change the slide again. And that is the fate of the Carousel Mall. But as often happens, all of this kind of ubiquitous sameness of malls and big box stores kind of brought a resurgence of downtowns, and we just rediscovered Main Street. Yay! So go back to the video now. So that video was created by our marketing firm, Eddie Alexander. And in case you weren't counting, a majority of the shots in that video, at least 15 of them, featured our Main Street district. Our community is so defined by our Main Street district, which includes Old Town and the surrounding downtown area. In a recent presentation from Eddie Alexander, who is our marketing team, they reported that they use cell phone data to track where visitors visit, and 95% of them stop in our Old Town area. This area is not just the crown jewel of our retail, it defines our community to visitors, and it creates a sense of home for residents. Do you want to move forward, please? One more. Okay. We celebrate there, and we have our personal special occasions like birthdays and first dates and our prom dates. And one of my favorite things actually is accidentally being in town during prom night. It is so much fun. I might have to wait a little longer at a restaurant, but it is so worth it to watch the kids coming in all dressed up. But we also have purposeful Main Street events like Mother's Day. This picture here is Amanda and our Old Main Street coordinator passing out flowers to people who shopped in Old Town for Mother's Day, and they'd also get free bouquets on Mother's Day. You can hit the next one. We have on the 4th of July, the biggest festival in the county, followed by fireworks over the bay. The next one. On Halloween, the streets are full of families trick-or-treating and visiting our local businesses. And finally, we have, of course, Christmas, where customers who want something that's really, truly special go to look for the perfect gift. Connecting our holidays and our special moments to Old Town creates memories that people will carry with them forever. And it also encourages customers to visit and spend money with our local businesses. Outside of the holidays, Main Street continues to create a sense of place and encourage shoppers by hosting events like Arts Alive. Just one slide, if you'll, I think hit there you go. And Taste of Main Street, farmers markets, and Thursday night concerts. And we have really been missing a lot of these events over the past few years. So thanks, COVID, but they will be returning. But what we need to remember is that as soon as we get comfortable with a growing enthusiasm for downtown again, it can change. This is where I will tell you, well, I will remind you what Amanda said, which is that I've been working in economic development for 15 years, and our organization has seen a lot of businesses come and go. I've seen a lot of them in my time. I was also a business owner myself, so I understand how all-encompassing it is. It's like falling in love with somebody who doesn't always love you back. You wake up thinking about them, you go to bed thinking about them, and to be honest, I spent way too many nights not sleeping thinking about them. Change is hard in good circumstances, but when you're just meeting your margins, any change can feel so overwhelming. But as this post says, for business, it is also vital. Ask Kmart and malls and the downtown districts of yesterday, say the 1970s. It is imperative that Main Street areas stay relevant to their communities, and their communities are in constant change. So you can go to the next slide. We're just going to sit on this one for a long time. There are a few areas of change that I want to address. One of them is cost of living, convenience, climate change, and COVID. And for the purposes of this presentation, we will call it the 3 C's, or the 4 C's, because I can count. Let's start with the cost of living. It is getting more and more expensive to run a business. Inflation and supply chain issues are affecting the cost of goods. Minimum wage mandates put a lot of pressure on businesses. And I'm not sure, even if we didn't have minimum wage mandates, that workers would be any easier to find. Eureka used to be one of the more affordable places to have housing in California. So I know I'm not alone when I say that our employees can barely afford to find it. Today, it's really, our housing has become very tight. And you probably are well aware in your own communities that housing throughout California is a real stressor. Employees are at work and they're ambivalent and distracted when they're there, because even with a job, they're still struggling to afford rent. And a lot of them have several different side gigs. This impacts business, this impacts customer service. And I know in Eureka, we are way behind in building affordable housing. You guys might all feel that way too. You know you're behind when you don't have enough of it. And some of our larger projects that we are planning to do are going to be located right in the Main Street district. I don't think that's going to be unique to Eureka. Infill is a main priority for housing right now, so you guys might all be experiencing this as well. This housing impacts businesses, and while it feels like an untenable change, especially when it translates to losing some parking, there's actually a lot of opportunity for Main Street businesses to have all of these customers living in the district full time. It could even mean employees can find affordable places within walking distance to work, creating a happier, less stressed workforce. Look for the opportunities. It is easy to just sort of have that reticence to wanting that change. But if you start to think about and talk about these new projects as opportunities, and you tell your customers you're excited about the changes, they will be excited too. Then as construction starts and it makes things a little bit less convenient for people, there will still be an excitement that keeps people coming downstairs or coming downtown. Believe it or not, there are people who love to follow the construction of projects. I mean, that in itself is a reason to go downtown to see how things are coming along. But customers can just as easily be turned off and avoid coming back if business owners talk about how horrible construction projects and activity in Old Town is. So really, the way you present changes in your community will either encourage people to sort of come along and find it something that we're all doing together, or it will make them want to avoid kind of the downtown area. So just think about that. Our businesses have a lot of control over how people respond to change. And you would be surprised how many inconveniences people will accept if there's an air of newness and excitement and expressed by the community. Convenience is another constant battle for Main Street businesses. In all of my talk about malls and big box stores, I didn't mention that there's also a lot of competition with online retail. All of those options lack the charm and the local feel of Main Street. But one struggle Main Street has and continues to have is that they tend to be open pretty standard business hours, often 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. But research shows that 70% of shopping is done after 6 p.m. It's also done on the weekends, including on Sundays, where we also often have a lot of closed businesses. So while there might be enough customers in the day to, meet your numbers and to be able to run the business, they're generally made up of tourists and retired folks that have that time free and available to shop. The professional crowd is finding Main Street stores through events that are held when they are available, evenings and weekends. And if there's an after hours event in Old Town, I don't know about you guys, but it is the place to be. It is so fun. It is so happening. But if you need to grab a last minute gift for a friend's birthday after work, that's another story. And I've known so many people who've wanted to go to Main Street to buy things, but they've ended up at the mall or at a big box store because that's what happens to be open when they're able to go shopping. The more that happens, the more likely they're going to be starting with those shopping options. So this is an opportunity to consider a more vibrant neighborhood by considering what hours your businesses are open. And that is a big decision. We have restaurants, of course, stay open later, and we have a single business that really does keep those hours that are longer. And I have bought many gifts from them, let me tell you, because they happen to be open when I go down there. But I feel like they're often, it's just not as vibrant because they're the only thing open. So it'd be nice if we had some more joining them at those times. The other thing I want to talk about, which feels like it's outside of it, like you shouldn't have to think about this. Business owners have so much to think about. Climate change is just too much. But do you remember when I talked about malls being designed for suburbs that meant people had to drive there? That is no longer the mindset of people who are living in the age of climate change. Cars have lost the appeal that they once had. They're expensive, way more expensive than they used to be. And so is the gas, and so is the insurance. And according to numbers from the Federal Highway Administration, only 61% of 18-year-olds in the US had a driver's license in 2018, compared to over 80% in 1983. So people are not choosing to get their license. And this isn't just a practical decision. These are value choices for people who are hoping to go as long and as often without driving as they possibly can. Not only are people more aware of the impact of vehicles on climate change, but they're actively seeking opportunities to be more closely connected with their community by walking and biking. In fact, walkability and multimodal transportation options are at the top of things that people look for when they're moving to a new community nowadays, which is really interesting to me. This is great for Main Street and for downtown districts because they're built to be close to town. They're built to be accessible. So you guys have that going for you already. But it doesn't mean that Main Street areas are always as accommodating as they can be. Look for opportunities to engage walkers, create serial window decorations. We did that this summer where we had a book called The Night Before Christmas, written by one of our old local authors, Natasha Lee. And we had a page in each window, so you could walk around from window to window and look at those stories. But you could carry on themes in a whole number of different ways that encourage people not just to walk in Old Town or in your Main Street. I'll probably call it Old Town because that's what we do. It encourages them not only to walk, but to look in your windows and sort of engage with your businesses. Also, look for opportunities to have more bike racks so people can bike to your community. And honestly, I just bought an e-bike, which is great. I ride my bike to work every day. It is super fun. And then when I need to go to Old Town, I walk because there's nowhere to keep an e-bike. I won't lock it up because it has too many pieces that can be picked off. But they do have things that are e-bike sheds. So if you could get some e-bike sheds and stick them next to your bike racks, you will find there are a lot of people who are picking up these bikes and looking for places to ride them. So give them a place that they can park them and actually do some shopping. And I'm feeling very confident in saying you are going to find people come see you that wouldn't normally do it. And then, of course, we can't forget about COVID. COVID has asked everyone to be way more adaptable than we ever thought possible. But COVID also taught us a lot. Eureka already had a pretty committed shop local culture, something that we have been working on for years. And I think that part of that is because our community for a long time has been creating this culture of entrepreneurship, innovation, resilience, and reliance on each other. All the things that people are learning in COVID, but we learned because we're just so isolated. We're so far away from other communities that we have for a long time really been building that. But I've been hearing more and more from other communities that have found their customers are more engaged in that shop local mentality. So that is super exciting. During the first Christmas during COVID, our shop owners reported increased sales, less shoplifting, because at that time you can only have a few customers in the store at a time. It gave them more one-on-one interaction with their customers, cut down the shoplifting, and the people who came in were shopping with a purpose. And so they were actually spending money. And so our stores after that first Christmas were actually quite happy with the results in a very frustrating time. But there was a time, just like you guys all had, where our stores had to close altogether for a while, for several weeks. And that brought an increase in the unsavory element into the mostly abandoned downtown district. As you're probably aware, unsavory folks don't like eyes on them. So when there are no eyes, they tend to come out more. So this is really where we asked for the support of our police department to talk to our businesses about what a program they have that's called CEPTED. And that means crime prevention through environmental design. Our economic development department at the city and the police department worked with local businesses to find ways to mitigate the negative effects of an empty downtown. The city was also working on a facade grant program. So what we did was included a CEPTED grant with that, so people could invest in the look of their businesses, but also we would give them grants to really invest in some of that protective environmental change. Things like lighting. Lighting comes up as one of the biggest things you can do to make your area less inviting to the unsavory element. Cameras, there are covers for windows like slick, awesome peels that will make them almost impossible to break. And a number of other things that folks have been able to invest in. So businesses continue to be eligible to sign up for the program and receive $7,500 to improve the facade and safety of their business, which has been a really cool program for Eureka and really was a direct response to the needs that they had. When businesses opened up again after they were closed for that little bit of time, the city was also really encouraging about setting up outdoor seating and shopping. And while we thought it could never work, that outdoor seating in Eureka, it's pretty cold in our community. We don't have a lot of those like lovely California sit outside on the patio days. So many communities may have already sort of been set up for that outdoor seating, but we were not. And we were wondering if it would work. And what we found is we're a hardy people and we love being outside. So we threw out some outdoor heaters. People bundled up, and now they are really, there's a lot of talk from customers and community members who are like, we don't want to see that go away. We love that outdoor ability to, eat, see our friends. I think people are bringing their dogs down. They can sit with them outside. It's a really fun environment. Additionally, through donations from the state of California, Main Street and downtown businesses and all of the other businesses in the county for that matter received free masks and hand sanitizer to help with some of the PPE, personal protective equipment requirements that COVID mandated. And I think that was really helpful for a lot of them to just not have to worry about those additional expenses. They were already spending money on plexiglass but the outdoor seating, actually outdoor seating, plexiglass, some of those other expenses were made available with a grant through the city of Eureka as well. So all of that outdoor seating that we have discovered we love was an investment that businesses didn't have to make because the city of Eureka helped make it for them. So their outdoor seating areas were funded through local grants. Yay, city of Eureka, Christine and Amanda. It is true, probably like you, that we lost quite a few businesses during COVID, but in my experience, many of those businesses were really kind of on the edge of closing before COVID, or they were just taking advantage of all the chaos to retire. So they were already considering, I'm going to close in a year or two, and they just went, oh, we'll just do it now. For those businesses who were successful and have made it successfully through COVID, yay! They were the ones that maintained their financials. One of the things in my business during the day and financing that we learned is that there are way more businesses that are kind of playing it by ear with their business finances than is really helpful. But the ones who were keeping their records up to date were able to receive PPP loans so that they can continue to pay their employees. They received California relief grants, shuttered venue grants, and other local grant options. So it was a hard lesson for those who really were kind of learning how to keep their books. But at this point, I don't think I need to remind you that if you haven't, work with your businesses to make sure that they're ready, ready for the next challenges, and then ready for the next opportunities for funding. It's just better all the way around. It helps them have a stronger business. So you can change the slide now. So keeping those thoughts in mind, here are some things to think about when you're addressing your challenges, which is recognize there is opportunity and change. Reassure your current customers, employees about your commitment to them as things are changing. Review your role in Main Street District, but also your role in the larger community, and recognize that you will be more successful if you change with your community. And research and reach out to potential new customers. And one of the things that happens when we sort of change these shopping habits is that we stay committed to a single group of customers, and as they move on, we haven't really brought in the next generation or the next group. So those are some of the things that I would recommend will help you adapt to some of those 4 C's I talked about earlier. And you can change the slide again. So Main Street creates the experiences that help us build a memory of place and of home. It lasts a lifetime. And many of our customers today have a long, committed history to our local businesses and their own stories about growing up downtown. There also continues to be families and young children who are making those memories today, and those are going to last well into the future. To me, sure, business is responsible for providing jobs, and sales tax, and needed services to the community. But more than that, they're building our community culture, and there is no more important work than that. And I thank you all for doing it. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. We really appreciate your support and taking your time to address all this morning.